eat whole foods, cut out sugar, mindful movement, and eliminate stress as much as possible.
Hey, I'm Taylor Hirschfield, and this is The Core of It, a series by Terra Collective. My goal in founding Terra Collective is to make holistic approaches to mind, body, and spirit health more accessible. In each episode of The Core of It, we'll explore a different healing modality, and I invite you to listen in and experience the practices alongside me. We move beyond symptoms to explore root causes and what it means to approach health as an interconnected whole. Welcome to The Core of It. Hey.
Hey.
So for those of you listening, I'm here with Carly Feldman. She is a holistic health coach. I'm super excited to be here with you, Carly. I mean, we're roommates in this conscious co-living situation, so I think I've had a very unique lens into the perspective you bring on building a healthy lifestyle and using nutrition and routines to do so. You've had such an impact on how my life looks and how I actually nourish myself on a day-to-day basis. I'm excited to hear more about, or I'm excited to expose more about your story and your journey. Like I said, you've taught me so much about nutrition and how to nourish myself, and I want to make this information accessible to people outside of our home and community bubble.
Let's do it.
So with that, I would love to have you introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you offer? And how did you find this path?
Sure. Okay. Hey, I'm Carly, as Taylor said. I'm originally from the US, if you can't hear from my accent. Originally from Baltimore, Maryland, and then I spent many years traveling, living in New York City for about 5 years before I moved to Berlin, where Taylor and I met, and then we kind of instantly fell in love and then decided to collaborate and create this co-living queendom house that we live in now. I have gone down many paths career-wise, but have been on a holistic health journey for a long time. So I guess I could start with my first chronic health issue. I had chronic UTIs in my first serious long-term relationship. And this was very confronting because I was going to so many different doctors and they were all prescribing me antibiotics. And I was going on antibiotics after antibiotics, and then my white blood cell count was low and my gut health was messed up. And this was the first time I was starting to really question mainstream health. It's like, this is not really working for me. No one's really talking about this. And I don't know if it was from like some podcast or something, but I learned about this herb called D-mannose. It's actually a sugar extract that's found in cranberries. I can go into this later. But as soon as I started taking this herbal pill and drinking a lot of water and hibiscus tea, my UTIs were going away. And I was like, okay, there's a lot here that no one's really talking about that I want to explore. So this is when I first started going to an integrative medicine doctor, starting to really unpack what was going on here, and then realizing I can actually take my health into my own hands when I look at it more holistically. So that was phase one of this journey. Still to this day, have never had a UTI since, and when I feel symptoms, I take this D-mannose, it goes away.
And what was this, what year was this?
This was in 2018.
Okay.
2018, yeah. So that was the first part, and then I think it was around this time also that I was vegan and already started to question mainstream food systems and mainstream agriculture, and again, the narratives that we've been taught as, this is the truth, this is how you do things. And I was like, no, I don't think this is working for me. And this is at a time of a lot of expansion in my life. I was traveling a lot. I stopped drinking. I started taking psychedelics. my mind was expanding a lot and starting to really question the systems and narratives that we've been told from a young age and have been conditioned to believe this is the way that you do things. So whatever, I'm going about on my journey and then already starting to question a lot of things. And then in 2022, I had some serious gut issues. I had gotten a parasite and I was very, very sick. And I was like, oh shit, like what do I do? Like I don't want to take antibiotics. Again, back to the same thing. Like I don't trust conventional healthcare, conventional doctors. Of course, there are many reasons why you would and should go to them. But I was faced with another situation of feeling like I wanted to take my health into my own hands, but I don't really know what to do about it. And so this brought me to a new journey of my holistic healing. And I went on a parasite cleanse. I did all types of elimination diets. And I was also struggling a lot with my mental health and realizing, oh, wait, I think I have undiagnosed ADHD and a lot of anxiety. And I was kind of all over the place. I was like, what do I do about this? And yeah, after doing a very extensive elimination diet where I eliminated all the major foods that you can think of, I was basically just eating. At this point, I stopped my veganism because I could only eat like fish, meat, vegetables, and fruit. That was pretty much it. I was still super bloated and having all of these gut issues and like, what is going on? I eliminated all the trigger foods. And of course, I learned that there's so many other things that are going on. But this eventually led me to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, where I thought, finally, I'm gonna figure out the foods that are, that are part of this whole story. That if I just eliminate this, it'll be good. But what I learned in this program, first and foremost, was that food is just one part of the picture. And of course, people talk about this, but to spend 1 year with all of these different doctors and experts in medicine from a holistic perspective, Eastern medicine, conventional medicine, food is just one part of the picture. It is a big part of it, but so is lifestyle, so are relationships, so are your financial health and your spiritual health and exercise. There's so many different core parts, and this was just so mind-boggling to me that we're just not approaching health in this way. And once I started integrating the things that I learned, I realized, wow, like I am so passionate about this. I'm starting to heal from the inside out. I'm healing my mind, I'm healing my body, I'm healing my gut, the mind-gut connection, the mind-body connection. There's so much here that just is not being talked about. And I just feel like I need to share this with the world. And I completely shifted all of my own, very restrictive diets and, needing to go on these cleanses and having such a tight grip on my nutrition and my diet, to having a much more relaxed approach and intuitively finding things that worked for me and realizing that it is very individualized. You can't take this bucket approach and give it to everybody, but you need to kind of really strip it all back, be really honest with yourself, ask the right questions, and then go from there. And I was like, okay, this worked for me. I know that this will work for other people, and that health and wellness doesn't have to be this daunting picture that like you have to, over optimize everything, listen to Huberman podcasts every day and like be really strict and disciplined about everything. It can be a lot more intuitive. It can be a lot more easeful. And this really worked for me, and I'm feeling healthier and better than ever before. And I've helped my clients get to a place too where they can feel like they can take their health into their own hands. So it's a bit of a tangent. I hope that got to the crux of why I'm doing what I'm doing. But
absolutely,
it's been a whole journey, and yeah.
Yeah, and what a revolutionary shift to go from struggling with this gut issue for a year, over a year?
I don't know, a year and a half, even 2 years.
Seeing so many doctors and nobody prompted this kind of holistic view of the situation.
Yeah.
So I can imagine coming to this new revelatory realization that actually the picture is so much larger than you had been prompted to view it previously. Wow. Was transformative. And I can see why you were inspired to shift course and try to bring this to your own clients and to a larger audience, because the reason that we're here is I think that so many people could benefit from looking at their health more holistically. So I wanted to ask a little bit more about your time at IIN. Mm-hmm. What was your experience like? How long were you studying? And what were maybe some of the inspiring learnings you had or teachers that you were exposed to during this time?
I was sort of like a self-paced program for about a year, mm-hmm. online. And I think, they kind of said from the beginning, take what you want from this, because there were so many teachers and the course was broken up into different themes and chapters. And we kind of dipped our toes into a little bit of Ayurveda, a little bit of, traditional Chinese medicine. We learned about paleo diets and keto and veganism. And different experts and different doctors and different nutritionists, different experts had different opinions. And you the point wasn't to take all of this information and like be an expert in all of it, but take what you want from it. So if you resonate a little bit more with Ayurveda, if you resonate a little bit more with traditional Chinese medicine, it's kind of up to you what you want to take from it and then integrate from there. But there were so many overlapping themes amongst all of them, which was eat whole foods, cut out sugar, mindful movement, and eliminate stress as much as possible. And so it was like, okay, yeah, you can focus on this, you could focus on this, but like, it's the same patterns. And whether you want to be paleo or keto or whatever, there are different reasons why you would do things depending on where you are in your life and your health. And, you know, if you have maybe terminal illness, you might really want to consider going on a keto diet for some time. But if not, maybe that's not actually beneficial for you. So really getting a full picture of everything and not hyper focusing on like one specific diet, one specific regimen, but getting a broad picture so you can really kind of, find the things that work for you. And they gave you so many different exercises in every chapter to figure out like, okay, like what is working for you, what is not, and where are you at? And I think the first chapter, the first month of IIN was so amazing because it was like, okay, what are we even doing? You know, Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I thought, okay, I'm going to learn all about nutrition. This is perfect. But really, nutrition was about like food specifically. It was about 30% of the program. So I was like, okay, well, what the fuck are we learning about? And there was these like core tenets of integrative nutrition. And they talk about primary foods and secondary foods. And primary foods are not actually foods, but these different tenets of your life. So I mentioned this a little bit before, but like there's like the circle of life that they show you, and you cut it up into a pie. And there's, I don't know if I can remember all of them top of mind, but there's financial health, spiritual health, relationships, home cooking, creativity. So things like this, not having to do with food at all. And you want to look at all of these first, and then you look at your secondary foods, which is the food that you put on your plate. And so in all of these different chapters throughout the year, you're looking at all of these different tenets of your health. So there would be one chapter that would be on, you know, career and finances. And do you feel healthy in this area? And for me, that was a big one. It was like, I've struggled with my finances for a long time. And I was like, oh, but this has nothing to do with my gut issues. Of course not. Like this is just how I make a living. But it's like, oh, actually, when you really get into it, are my stress levels high because my finances aren't high enough? Okay. And then if my stress levels are high, is that going to impact my my gut lining? Because the mind, the body connection, it's like, oh shit, okay. So it's like every single area is impacting everything. But then if you're not focusing on your secondary foods, so if you're not eating enough prebiotics and probiotics to support the gut, that's going to impact your stress levels, which is going to then impact your ability to have a successful job. And so everything goes hand in hand in hand in hand. If you're struggling with your relationships, again, stress. So that was another big thing where it doesn't matter if you're learning about Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, you know, conventional allopathic medicine. Stress is the most inflammatory thing that you could put in your body. So these are some things that I just kind of took away from the program, was every single teacher, every single lecturer, doctor, in theory is saying the same things. And it's said in different words. Of course, there's different details and different, you know, manuscripts that you can follow. But overall, as you spend a year learning about all these different modalities, you're getting the same information, and then you filter it how you want.
That makes a lot of sense. And that's super helpful to understand because I think there's so many different versions of health coaches and nutritionists out there. And I think this really helps give an overview of what it actually means to be a holistic health coach. So I'm curious now if you could tell us a bit more about how you actually work with your clients. What does your offering look like? And yeah, what does it look like to work with you?
Totally. So I think a lot of people come to me because they realize that their habits and their food choices are not serving them. And, they're binge eating at night, or they're eating a lot of ice cream, or they're not moving their bodies. They're struggling to cook for themselves, to nourish themselves, to figure out a healthy breakfast routine. How can they cook dinner for themselves and their families and their partners when they're so busy? And all of this just feels really overwhelming. And as I mentioned, I've struggled a lot with ADHD and motivation and time management. And so a lot of people who come to me also are on the neurodivergent spectrum and feel very paralyzed and overwhelmed by all of these decisions that you need to make on an everyday basis of like, what am I supposed to shop for? And like the ingredient lists are so long, and like, how do I save money? And how do I fit this into my busy life? Because it is a lot to think about. And it is a lot to try to factor in. How am I supposed to get my 10,000 steps and make breakfast, lunch, and dinner and like save money and like not eat processed foods and like not generate a lot of trash? And so I really help clients strip all of this back and make it as accessible as possible. So it's not like, okay, you need to get all of your macros on this day and you need to get this many steps and this exercise routine, but where are you at in your current life right now? Where do you want to go? What is holding you back? And how can we make this as easy, accessible, and pleasurable as possible? So, I was working with a client the other day and we're trying to figure out like, okay, what does breakfast, lunch, and dinner look like? And she's like, I'm always just eating whatever. She's a PT, and sometimes these pharmaceutical companies come in and they, serve food, and it's often unhealthy food, which is, I find, so ironic. It's like, the people in charge of our medicine are giving us unhealthy food. And they're coming in with like all different types of like, I don't know, barbecue chicken and things that are covered in all of this trash, basically. So she's like, I wanna meal prep and be able to cook healthy dinners. And so we're going through, I'm like, okay, what do you like? And she's like, I really don't like tomatoes, but like I can make it work. And I was like, if you don't like tomatoes, we don't need to put tomatoes in there. Fuck tomatoes, like, what do you like? She's like, oh, okay, I really like chicken. So I'm like, okay, cool. Do you have a good chicken recipe that you like? She's like, I'm actually really overwhelmed by making chicken. So I'm like, okay. Have you ever thought about just buying, rotisserie chicken in the grocery store from Whole Foods? Of course, maybe it's better if you're making chicken from scratch every day, but if you're strapped for time, motivation, and energy, maybe it's beneficial to just buy pre-cooked chicken so you have it for the week in your fridge and you throw it into a salad. She's like, I didn't even think about that. And it's something so simple, but we get so stuck in our habits and our mind about like what works and what doesn't and why we'll do something that sometimes it's just like, how can we strip it all back and create systems for ourselves to make it as easy as possible so you can get protein, have a healthy meal, and enjoy it. If you love chicken, great. We can make this work. So it's really just trying to find and tweak the systems that we already have to make it work. And it's like, okay, I want to cook everything from scratch so I have dinner for the week. And it's like, but why are you not doing that now? Well, because it takes so long to do things and, I have to cook chickpeas from scratch and I have to do this. And it's like, okay, how can we make a meal plan that's stupidly simple? Stupidly simple. It's like, do you ever boil eggs for the week? Do you like eggs? Oh yeah, I like eggs. Okay. Have you ever thought about boiling maybe 12 eggs at a time so you have them ready to go for the week? So you have breakfast ready to go if you want. You have an easy protein for lunch, easy protein for dinner. It's like, so it's like these little hacks to just make meal prepping or your routines easier. And of course, it's super dependent on the client and where they're at and what they want to work on, but it's really looking at where they're at now, what's holding them back, and then tweaking it to fit their lifestyle, their needs, their desires, their goals specifically. And again, making it as easy as possible.
Makes sense. It sounds a bit like you are, like you said, meeting your clients where they're at, identifying where they want to go, and then kind of doing a bit of a deep dive to understand where they're stuck and shake them out of the stuck spaces by helping realize, like, what are the narratives we're actually telling ourselves about this being super hard or this being a big barrier? How can we actually wipe that away and create these small hacks that prove it doesn't actually have to be so difficult to make these healthy, productive changes.
Totally.
I wanted to ask you, what are some of the biggest misconceptions? And you've kind of touched on this already, but I'm still curious to hear, because I can see every time I go back to the US, for example, people thinking that they're being healthy by purchasing certain items and now, because I've lived with you and have your perspective and have you kind of in my ear about your perspective on health, I'm like, your entire fridge is not healthy. So I want to know from you, what are some of the biggest misconceptions on what it means to be healthy?
Yeah. Oh, I was actually thinking about this morning. So I really love almond butter. And in the US, it says all over the package, this is not a low-calorie food, as if calories are bad. And I was thinking, like, why are we focused so much on calories? This is so inherently wrong. We want nutrient-dense calories in every single meal. And I think that maybe in the last 20 years, there was such a focus on low calories, and you have these, 100-calorie packs and counting calories as a way of being healthy. And of course, calories in, calories out. Of course, if you're consuming too many calories and you're not exercising at all and you're consuming empty calories, this isn't good. But something like almond butter, which is high fat, high caloric food, is one of the healthiest foods that you can eat. So I think people are so focused on calories and fat as being bad and unhealthy. And so if you're eating like a low fat, low caloric diet, you're good, but you're probably actually malnourishing yourself if that's what you're focusing on. And especially if you look at these, a lot of, 100-calorie packs in the US, or these like healthy portions, even Swedish fish say on the package, like, low-fat food, And it's like, ooh, but like, look at the ingredients. Look at the ingredients. Do you know what half of these ingredients are? And most people don't. And that's the problem. We need to focus on whole foods. If you can't read or understand or know what the ingredients are, don't eat it. And usually too, it's like, if you can consume something from like a bag, like a processed snack, and you can eat a whole bag in 5 minutes, it's not a good idea.
Interesting. What are some of those ingredients to look out for? That, like, now I have it as a part of my practice when I'm picking something up in the grocery store to scan the ingredient list, and I'm like, Carly told me no. Yeah. So what are those ingredients? When we're looking to buy something in the grocery store, maybe something super simple like a can of coconut milk, like, how do we choose which one to get?
Very good question, and something that I do think, even though I think going on an elimination diet should only be prescribed for very specific cases, because I was trained to look out for sugar, because I could not have sugar at all for 8 weeks, look out for sugar. Because once you start looking out for it, you notice that it's in literally everything. And it's such a hidden source of, yes, calories, I was just talking about it, but it's driving up, glucose spikes, and it's so bad for the gut lining. And I mean, I could go on and on about why sugar is bad. Sugar's in almost everything, especially in the US, especially in packaged foods. So for example, you might think something like pickles, innocent. It's just, cucumbers and salt and vinegar. Majority of the time there's sugar in it. It's often the second ingredient. Granola, cereals, crackers. Sugar is almost always in there. If you see sugar within the first 5 ingredients, please do not get it. Please do not get it. You're gonna have a spike, and it's probably also full of a lot of other ingredients that you want to look out for. Like, this is controversial in the wellness world, but seed oils. So these industrialized seed oils like canola oil, rapeseed oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, corn oil is horrible, soybean oil. These are not good, and these are, again, often in a lot of processed foods. Also, if you notice too, like if you buy olives, often olives are in corn oil or canola oil. And these are extremely inflammatory. So you want to watch out for these bad oils. You want to watch out for sugar. A lot of, like in coconut milks and things, for example, you really want to be looking for coconuts and water. And often in these canned foods, there's like guar gums, preservatives. We don't want these things. Keep it as simple as possible. So maybe salt, olive oil, vinegar for like pickled things. Otherwise, like if you don't know what it is, if there's like E's, if there's like, which are preservatives in Germany and in Europe, food dyes are extremely bad as well. So like blue 24, whatever these are, like we don't want these things. So whole foods.
Makes sense when you think about it, but it's not something that we are often informed to do.
Yeah. Like peanut butter. People love peanut butter, which, there's some good things about peanut butter, but often in peanut butter there's sugar, salt, and often other oils that are added. So watch out for that one.
Makes sense. If you could describe your work as a metaphor, what would it be?
Treat your health like a marathon, like you're training for a marathon, right? Like you can look at the marathon and be like, how the hell am I gonna run that many miles when I don't run at all? This is inaccessible. This is way too much. This is over my head. Like I'm gonna need to train every day. I need to get all this equipment and new shoes and like figure out how I'm gonna fit it into my schedule, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, but what happens when you actually train for a marathon is you do little steps every single day to get yourself prepared to get to the finish line the day that the marathon is there. So that when you finish the marathon, you're like, wow, I just ran a marathon and I feel so proud of myself. And now I know that I can do another marathon and maybe I'm gonna wanna do a marathon every year. And it just takes consistency and regularity, belief in yourself, motivation to do so, but you're not gonna on day one of training complete that marathon in the time that you thought you would. Maybe you're gonna run a mile every day. And maybe that first week, those runs are gonna be shit, You're gonna feel like your knees are sore and that you're like, oh, I don't wanna do this. This sucks. But then you keep going. But it doesn't look the same every day. There might be some days that you are too tired and you can't run. And you take those rest days. Because if you don't, you're gonna burn yourself out. And it's the same thing with the work that I do and with looking at health and wellness and healthy habits holistically. Consistency is not peak 100% every single day. But it's like trying every day with the intention of, I wanna be the best, healthiest, most empowered version of myself. And that means I'm gonna do what I need to do as much as possible with consistency, with support too. Often people when they're training for a marathon, they don't do it alone. They join a running club. They have a running coach. They work with people to help them achieve their goals. And it's the same thing with my work.
Cool, I love it. Final question before I hand the mic to you, or the baton. What's your favorite part about what you do?
I think my favorite part is getting to know people on an individual level and then also seeing what's mirrored back at you. Because I think often people think that they're so alone in their journey, but really we can all relate to what everyone's going through. And learning the little nitty-gritty parts of what people are working through is just so interesting for me from like an anthropological, psychological level. Because, well, first of all, at the end of the day, most people are struggling with the same things. And it's just so human to feel like we're so alone, but really we're all the same. And maybe it's, one person has more of a sweet tooth, one person like she's more. And we all have these compulsions and these things that like feel so hard, but to really just kind of human to human connect and be like, I feel you. I've also struggled with this, like, I got you. And to find ways to like make this fun for them. And it's also fun for me to relate on this way and to find things that work. I get excited about finding something that can work, and then they get excited, and it's just this sort of energetic exchange that just feels really quite fun. It's just a conversation. It's just building another type of relationship where you can find solutions together. You're a team, you know? And it's so fun for me to be this cheerleader for this person and to get to share my knowledge with them. But it's really not even so much about me just spewing facts at them, but it's just kind of listening and being this sort of safe space for this person to highlight where they're at, reflect it back at them, so then together we can help them become the best version of themselves. Not the best version of that I think that they should be, but who they want to be, how they want to eat, and just helping shed that light, I think, is just my favorite part.
Cool. Okay, so now we can move into actually doing a session together. Okay. And I guess maybe before we dive into the session, we can talk a little bit about what we're going to do in this session. If you want to share kind of your approach. What are you thinking for this session?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd want to, I know how your day looks more or less, but I'd love to kind of dive into the nitty gritty and be like, okay, what does your schedule look like? Morning to evening, going to bed, and get a real look at how your meals are looking, your snacks, your cravings, your exercise routines, your mental health, sleep, and see what's working and see kind of where maybe you could use a bit of improvement and fine-tune that a little bit and figure out how we can make this even better for you. I mean, because I know that you have an amazing routine, and I've seen you shift it so much over the last year of living together, but there's always things that we can look at and decide, or even if you don't change anything, but just ask yourself, why am I even doing this? Sometimes we get into habits, it's like, is this even working for me, or is this just something that I do?
Totally.
Yeah. So I think that would be fun. How do you feel about that?
I think that sounds great.
Okay.
You're now the interviewer.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Okay, cool. Well, I guess we could start with, genuinely, how are you feeling right now, in this moment, today? How is your energy?
Today, my energy is quite good. And I think I attribute that to the fact that I knew we were gonna have this interview this morning. And as a result, I stopped looking at my phone by 11 p.m. last night. I made sure I was going to have 8 hours of sleep and still have my extensive morning routine this morning. So I had my phone, I have a loft bed, and I had my phone downstairs on airplane mode maybe an hour or so before I actually went to sleep. I went up to bed, I read for a while before actually going to sleep, and then I woke up this morning with just enough time to be able to ground into myself and my routines. So I started the day with a meditation, and then I did a very, very light yoga session because I injured my lower back this weekend at an indoor trampoline park. So I've been trying to take it easy on the physical activity. I did that with my little vitamin D sun lamp on while I did the yoga. And then I did a long shower routine, did my laundry, did some productive things, put some dishes away in the kitchen, and
Thank you.
no problem. And so then by the time, I just wanted to make sure I was feeling grounded and ready for this session with you. Today I'm feeling pretty good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. And how have you been feeling this week otherwise?
This week, otherwise, I would say I think generally over the course, something I struggle with is waking up and feeling rested, despite the amount of sleep that I'm getting, and I just don't know why. sometimes I wake up and it's like impossible to get out of bed. And I don't have an answer for this. So on Monday, I felt like that. I woke up feeling super tired. And yeah, so I think generally that's something that I kind of struggle with. And I don't know if I'm not like getting into a deep enough sleep over the course of the evening to actually like wake up feeling rested. Yeah, and I think something that I haven't had as much space for recently is journaling. This is a practice that really grounds me in myself. It gives me space to also practice gratitude, and that's something that generally I think keeps me feeling more happy and just like equanimous. So I think like my sleep and for some reason in the morning right now, other practices are taking priority, like meditation and physical activity. But I haven't had as much time and space for journaling, which I would say is, I'm just noticing it.
Okay. I mean, good that you're noticing it. I'm curious if you feel you would want to either find a different time in the day that you could journal, or do you feel that you would want to replace one of your other morning activities for journaling?
I think it's a question. Like I definitely think that with journaling, whenever I come to it, it's always helpful. So it doesn't have to happen in the morning. I think that for some reason, and I don't know whether it's just, like sometimes I find, for example, that when I set myself up for success with something, it just flows more readily. Like if I want to drink more water and I have a water bottle next to me all day, I drink more water. But if I want to drink more water and I don't have anything sitting next to me or like accessible to me, I just don't. Like if I forget my water bottle at home, it's just like I don't drink water.
I hate forgetting my water bottle.
It's the worst. So I think maybe it's similar with journaling. Like I'm not sure. I don't know, like maybe I also need to consciously like be like, I'm gonna journal today, I'm gonna make it a priority. I just haven't been keeping it as a priority. For some reason, these other things have become priority. But I would be open to doing it another time during the day for sure, and that's worked for me in the past. It's just kind of fallen for some reason. Yeah.
Do you feel like you might want to set a time to journal? Would that be helpful? Or does this not feel like something that feels as important right now?
No, I think it definitely feels important. It feels important. Yeah, maybe I could set a time or say like maybe an intention, not necessarily a time. Like say like, okay, when I kind of have my lunch in the middle of the day, before I go back to starting another task after lunch, I'll journal for 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Like kind of carving out the intention so that it's like a plan in my brain maybe would be helpful.
Okay, cool. Well, I invite you to explore that at some point, just because if, you've identified that this is one thing that really helps you feel grounded and that you think helps in general, but then you're not doing it, it's like, okay, well, are other activities taking precedence for good reason? Probably. Or is it just you're not doing it because, like you said, you haven't set aside the time to do it if you don't have the time in the morning? So it's sometimes helpful to look at the things that we want to do and why we're not doing them. And it could just be as simple as setting a calendar time of like 15 minutes or an intention, however you best do things when you have an intention to do things.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure that you can add this into your life right now if you feel like this is something that would help your life be better.
Yeah, definitely. I think talking through it is helpful, and I think like knowing in my mind and maybe even putting a calendar invite just so that it doesn't like slip, but knowing that I like given other things are taking priority in the morning, that I can still come to journaling like as maybe a midday reset or a midday like check-in with myself feels very good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Would it be helpful if I checked in on you maybe this afternoon or tomorrow afternoon or on Friday? like either texted you or came into your room and asked if you journaled?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think like a check-in of some sort would be super helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could do that.
Cool.
Okay.
Nice.
Perfect. So I know we veered off a little bit, but I wanted to just start with the morning routine to see where you were at. And, you know, of course, this wasn't related to food, but all of these things are so important for our everyday health and wellness and mental health. I mean, do you want to explore the sleep thing a little bit more?
Sure.
Okay. So you mentioned last night you had a really good sort of sleep hygiene, and this morning you did. How did it look like in the beginning of the week?
In the beginning of the week, I slept over at my partner Connie's place, and I would say we went to bed at a reasonable hour, but we fell asleep watching like a nature documentary. So maybe that's not so sleep hygienic. And then in the morning, I felt so deeply tired. I just didn't, he was waking up around 7. I snoozed the alarm for another hour or so. And generally I know with myself also that even if I wake up and I'm like deadly tired, if I snooze the alarm, I'm more tired after that. So even though it's like all I want to do in the moment is snooze the alarm when I'm so tired, it's the best thing to just like get up and suck it up, which is also what I did this morning when I set my alarm this morning for 7:30 and I was like tired. I just got out of bed and I was like, I know I'm going to really value having all of this time to myself this morning. And now I'm feeling great.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah.
Okay. So did you snooze on Monday and Tuesday?
I did snooze yesterday. Yeah,
Okay.
I had to be up very early, so I had originally set the alarm for 6:30, and then I decided to sacrifice some time on my morning routine to get up at 7:15 instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we know that the snoozing is a thing that you're doing that in the moment feels really good, but then holistically throughout the day and the week, you're like, maybe this isn't actually serving me.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
And is this something that you feel in general is a thing that you're working through? Like not just this week, but like...
I think in my lifetime, it's been a very big thing for me. When I did a Vipassana earlier this year in February, I came back from Vipassana and I dropped the snooze completely. I even actually dropped using an alarm altogether and just got on this like very rhythmic sleep schedule where I was going to sleep and then waking up very naturally quite early. And that felt amazing. Like that felt like I was at the peak of my sleep hygiene.
Okay.
Like in my ideal world, I would absolutely love to like stop all screens 2 hours before going to sleep and be in bed latest by 11. Like, no, be in bed by like 10:30, sleeping by like 11:30, and then waking up naturally with no alarm at like 6 or 7.
Okay.
This would be like optimal, and I know what this feels like because I experienced it for like this sweet few, like maybe 3 months before I started kind of veering back into my old habits of snoozing. So yeah.
And does this feel realistic for you right now, given your lifestyle and where you're at? Because like if you're... It's different if you're on a Vipassana retreat, but in everyday life with, you know, sleeping at Connie's or him sleeping here or, you know, partying on the weekends, not to say it's not possible, anything's possible.
Yeah.
But just honestly, do you think it's possible to set that kind of goal for yourself?
I think that it is possible. Maybe I need to be a little bit more flexible about like the sleep time. Like I think that, I don't know, like it's hard to say because maybe this is something that I'm being like too overly ambitious about. But I don't know, like I feel that like last night into today was a good example of what this could look like. But it felt like it was like, you know, it's like you said when you're training for a marathon and the first run is really hard. This is maybe what it felt like today. Like, ooh, this is like the optimal way I want it to be, but I'm not there yet. So like yesterday might be a good compromise where I'm like turning my phone on airplane mode at 10:45. I'm in the bed at 11. I'm like reading for 15 to 30 minutes, and then I'm waking up on the first alarm at 7:30, for example. And then I'm getting my 8 hours and like, yeah.
Okay.
I think that feels realistic. Like maybe sleeping by 11:30, 12 feels reasonable to me on my current schedule.
Do you want to write this in your journal? So now you're doing 2 things at once?
Is this my homework?
Up to you. I know for me, I find it helpful when I write these things down.
Mm-hmm. So, sleeping at 11:30, airplane mode, let's say 10:45. Because I think anything more would maybe be ambitious. Awake at 7:30.
No snooze.
No snooze. Damn, the snooze is just, it's like the devil. Sweetly whispering, like, just a little longer. Just a little longer.
It's like these frozen cookies in our fridge, in our freezer, and it's like after a meal, it's like just a little bit of cookies, and it's like I know that I'm not probably gonna feel proud of the fact that I just ate 2 cookies from this freezer, but that we warmed up in the oven, but it's like, oh, but don't you just want me a little bit? Don't you? Come on, it's gonna feel so good.
Just slice off a little sliver.
I know I found for myself, like I really try not to have sugar in the house. Mm-hmm. So usually when it's here, I eat it. So my role is like, as you know, it's like, don't bring this in my house. Mm-hmm. And so it's maybe for you similar with the snooze. It's like, this can't be an option. Of course, it's a little bit less straightforward because you can always press that button.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you know it's not really an option, then you just don't do it.
Yeah. Yep.
Was this helpful to work through the sleeping situation?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like a lot of things. It's interesting because it's like, I definitely can understand what you mean with your clients and like trying to identify with them what has become this like gigantic mountain of a task in their mind that doesn't actually have to be. Like, how can we actually look at this in a way where we're breaking it down to think of like what's a step that we can take towards getting up the mountain, even if like we're not going to be at the top of the mountain tomorrow.
Right.
And I think
we shouldn't try to be.
Yeah.
Because we don't need to be.
Yeah.
But if you're taking one step towards
exactly,
and I think a lot of the time is people have these unrealistic goals. Well, I'm gonna, lose 10 pounds at the end of the month. And it's like, is this about losing 10 pounds at the end of the month? Or is it about feeling healthier and like leaner?
Yeah.
And feeling good in your body? And maybe you gain 10 pounds of muscle. I mean, maybe that's also a lot for a month, but like, what is the why behind this?
Yeah.
Do you want to go to bed at 10:30 because it's like you like the idea of having 8 hours of sleep? Or do you want to go to bed at 10:30 because you want to feel rested?
Yeah.
And maybe going to bed at 12 then, you'll still feel rested.
Yeah.
So really just kind of figuring out, well, why do we set ourselves up for sometimes not success?
Yeah.
When sometimes we really need to break down these goals that seem good. Mm-hmm. They seem reasonable. Mm-hmm. But then is this actually realistic with where we're at? Is this necessary even?
Definitely.
And maybe like it could be helpful because sometimes I know when it's like no snooze ever, that can also feel very daunting. Like no sugar ever, no whatever ever. That can be really rigid. Some people like to have all or nothing. I'm kind of an all or nothing kind of person, but for other people it's like, I don't like that. So for some people they might be like, okay, no snoozing 3 times a week. Or what would be something that would feel good for you?
I think I'm also generally more of an all or nothing kind of person. So I really like the idea of, instead of snoozing, being more realistic with myself about a committed time that I can get out of bed.
Okay.
Like even if let's say for some reason, I'm going to bed a bit later. I got lost in a flow. I went out with friends. And I have to do something in the morning, and I know I like to have my morning routine, but I also know it's gonna be like hellish to wake up. Maybe just being more realistic about like, okay, I'm pretty tired right now. I'm gonna give myself an extra hour of sleep and cut my morning routine short and just set my alarm for a realistic time rather than be over ambitious and then
Scheduling an 8 a.m. yoga class.
Yeah, exactly.
She does sometimes.
Like maybe not on those nights, you know? So yeah. I think I like the idea of just getting more, like being more honest with myself in those moments, setting the alarm a little bit later when I need to, because the act of snoozing is, I feel the detriment it takes on my day in terms of like how my energy is. Like even when it's hellish to wake up on an early alarm, I think my energy feels so much better than when I snooze, even if I sleep like 2 more hours.
Would it be helpful if you, this could be funny, if you have an audio as your alarm, like, no snoozing today? You know, like how could you make it as like fun or like interesting as possible, so when that alarm goes off, you're not even thinking about snoozing. You're
Well,
just
to be honest, it's like really funny that you asked this because I used to like be so militant about this, and I had the alarm that was like meh, 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 like every morning. And at one point, I think it's actually after I did Vipassana when I started to use my alarm to meditate, where when I would finish the meditation and the end of the meditation was the meh, meh, meh. I was like, this is really not acceptable. Like, I need this to be something softer. So I actually have like a very, very nice alarm sound that's like chill. Like I could lay in bed for 5 minutes with that alarm going off.
Is that the problem?
Well, actually, that's pretty good because today I laid in bed for 5 minutes. I was like, okay, get up.
Okay.
Get up. And then I got up.
Okay,
so
cool.
It was like, all right, okay. It's like I eased into the idea of not snoozing.
Okay.
And it worked. But yeah, if you want to record a little song for me, I'm also open to shifting.
Wake up, Taylor. It's time to get up. You don't like snoozing. It's not good for your health.
Oh, yeah. Maybe this is another arm of your business.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
could extend into.
I also make snooze jingles, so hire me.
It's an epidemic, the snoozing. So.
Truly. Okay. Cool. So does this feel like a good place to, I don't know, write in your journal after lunch of like your intentions for your sleep hygiene for the week?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Perfect. Do you want to keep diving into your routines, or do you feel like this is a good place to finish for the session?
Well, I think these are two very like good pieces of, I guess, homework or little kind of tweaks I can make to my schedule that I'll definitely take with me. Would it be interesting to talk a bit about the morning routines that we have, just as like a kind of, because I mean, while this is something that I feel very strong in now, it's not something that I necessarily was strong in a year ago or when I was living alone. So maybe it could be just a value add for people to hear about.
Sure. Okay. Do you want to maybe talk about what your morning routine looked like when you had a full-time job, when you feel it wasn't as good as it is now?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was looking back at old writing from a writing workshop I did 2 years ago, and one of the prompts was to write a self-portrait of yourself. And part of the self-portrait that I wrote of myself was talking about what I did every morning. And in that morning routine, I said, yeah, every morning I wake up, I immediately put on WNYC, which is New York Public Radio, and I sit on the couch and I scroll on my phone and I puff my vape. Like, ooh, this is not necessarily the best way to start your day. And reading that, I was like, wow, Damn.
Some shifts have taken place.
Yes.
Okay.
That's crazy. So that was really, I think I was a bit on autopilot, knowing that I was going to need to be sitting in front of a computer starting at 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. I was kind of just waking up at the last possible minute, using my morning time to kind of like do the bare minimum and start my day. So that's what it used to look like.
Okay. And were you eating breakfast? Were you drinking coffee? What did it look like in terms of nourishment in those morning hours before the workday started?
I was doing a lot of intermittent fasting at this time. So I would wake up and often I would have coffee with like a splash of coconut milk and that maybe even oat milk at the time. I don't know. No, I think you had put me off the oat milk by then. And then, yeah, starting my day and having my first meal probably around 1 or 2 p.m.
Okay.
Upon which I would have a lunch, which would usually consist of kind of like a big salad, some kind of protein, which was like, I remember I was really into these like vegan chicken patties, which looking back on them, they're like super filled with inflammatory oils and just these ingredients that we were talking about earlier. But I definitely thought that it was like a healthy kind of option at the time. Which I mean, sure, there's definitely worse things that you could eat.
Definitely.
But yeah, I think my perception of health has definitely shifted a lot since then.
Okay. And do you feel like your routine was serving you then, though?
I mean, I think that I was seriously lacking in my morning ritual with myself, which now is like so sacred to me. I need like minimum 2 hours with myself in the morning to do everything to kind of welcome the day and yeah, like just kind of warm my body into the day. So looking back at the kind of pre-work day starts, I look back on that time and I see myself a little bit on autopilot, like a little bit of like numbness there to like just how, like, I mean, it's such an art and a science to like wake up and start your day as a human in this world. And I think that I was really, really, truly just on autopilot. It was like, okay, get up, put the radio on, like go scroll, puff my vape. It's kind of like, I mean, almost all kind of quick dopamine hits as well. So I think I was not really consciously looking at how to use that very sacred time when you first wake up in the morning.
And what would you say your energy was like, you know, back then and in the day? Like, because now in your peak morning, you're feeling grounded, like you said, you're feeling warmed up for the day, feeling, it sounds like, very in tune and in touch with yourself. Can you recall what your energy felt like then? Besides being autopilot.
I think that generally at that time, there was a lot of apathy. I was working in a job where everything on paper was great, but I wasn't really inspired and I was feeling a bit stuck. And I didn't feel like my skill set was being used to its potential. I just didn't feel so inspired. And I think a big reflection I had after the fact is that apathy is something that you can't really turn off. When you feel it in one part of your life, it kind of seeps in to everything. So, I mean, I think I was definitely a bit generally apathetic in my work at this time, and that maybe also lends itself to why I keep going back to this word like autopilot. Yeah, at the same time, I was also really building my community in Berlin. I wasn't necessarily on solid ground from like a relationship, social perspective. It was all very exciting, but I think also the kind of maybe unsure footing also made it easier to be a bit in autopilot apathy mode, even though I had this one realm of my life sorted, which was financial stability. The other kind of realms were maybe still in development or in need of nourishment and improvement. So I would say, I wouldn't say I was like super lacking energy, but at the same time, there was a certain apathy, which maybe isn't the most, like the highest quality of energy. It's just kind of a consistent, maybe dullness.
Right. And if we go back to, these primary foods that we were talking about, maybe your financial health was high, but then all of these other areas, relationships, potentially spiritual health, home cooking, arguably, home environmental health. Maybe those things, your health was not, it sounds like, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, definitely.
And, that's going to impact your overall health.
Definitely.
Like we talked about. So you could have, for some people who in the wellness space, or who identify as being really healthy, they eat perfectly, they meditate every day, they, do cardio, and they drink their green juice, but then their relationships are suffering. They don't have like this sort of zest for life.
Yeah.
Maybe they're like still ordering from wellness cafes every day and they're not home cooking at all. They don't, feel good in their career. They don't feel connected to a purpose. So are those people healthier than someone who maybe has a more well-rounded health?
Yeah.
And in the society that we live in, a lot of people would say, oh, but they're the token of health. Mm-hmm. But the way that I look at things and the way that I feel is like true sustainable health, which includes so much happiness and ease and pleasure in life, in all areas of your life. I would say that someone who maybe doesn't have a six-pack and who isn't drinking green juice every day, but has healthy relationships and feels connected to their purpose and wakes up every day, maybe not every day, but many days feeling joyful, feeling how you feel, feeling grounded and like warmed up for the day, where you have time to journal and meditate and like find space for gratitude, and then have time to nourish yourself with a healthy, high protein breakfast. Like, I mean, you also kind of have a six-pack, so you're just killing it, but
No.
But yeah, these things are not so straightforward. They're really layered.
Yeah.
And involve so many different parts. And that's also what I like to coach my clients on as well, because I think that we often have pretty narrow perspectives on like what it means to be healthy, mm-hmm. and not to discount how someone feels and what they want, and to say, oh, your goals are bullshit. But again, getting to the why.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's so interesting because the shift in me has been this slow burn over the course of the past year and a half, from where I was to where I am now. So it's really interesting looking back on just a mere like year, 2 years ago, where if you'd asked me at that time, like, do I feel healthy? I would have said 100% yes. I'm intermittent fasting every day. I'm starting my morning with a cold shower. I'm eating like super clean. I really felt that I was like doing it right. And
well, you were on paper.
On paper, yeah. And then, I mean, I think other people challenged my like intermittent fasting, where it was like, actually, intermittent fasting every single day doesn't make so much sense for women who are on a monthly hormone cycle. And then I started looking into this more deeply, and there are actually only certain windows within the course of your cycle that you should be fasting for over, let's say, 16 hours. Like, you can fast healthfully for 12 hours every day. That's great, but every night, I mean. So if you go to bed at 8 p.m. or stop eating at 8 p.m. and you eat again at 8 a.m., great. But if you want to fast for over 16 hours, there are certain times in your cycle where you just shouldn't do that because your body is really trying hard to create hormones and do other things. So this way of thinking, of like kind of shifting out of this like militant, I must do this mindset. And it's the same with the cold showers. Like, I also realized like after a year of cold showers that I was actually getting sick more often. And it's like, why am I doing this? Because I saw some fitness influencer telling me that this is the way I should live my life. And I'm not intuitively checking in with what's happening in my body. Again, it goes back to this kind of autopilot, doing things like you think you should on paper, but not actually listening to what your body needs and what your mind needs and what your spirit needs. So I think that there has been this gradual but very significant evolution in how I approach these things.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear it. That's so good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's cool to reflect on. Okay, so is that the end of our session then?
That's up to you. Do you feel satiated with what we covered today?
I do. I feel that these two key pieces of commitments I can make to myself about the journaling and the sleep feel really reasonable and impactful.
Okay, perfect. And from me, so I said that I can help try to keep you accountable with the journaling. Should I also check in about the snoozing?
Yeah.
Okay. What would feel like a good sort of accountability check-in for you for both?
Maybe we can check in when we see each other in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Which I guess I have the lucky position of having access to you every morning, which I can't say about all of your clients. But we got to tailor this to where we're at,
Definitely.
I suppose.
Okay, well, perfect. That is my homework, and I'm excited to check up on you tomorrow morning.
Cool. Okay. So, as we kind of, I guess, close our session and look forward, I have some questions for you just about your perspective on the world. And the first is, when you look at the way we approach illness and disease in Western culture, what shifts would you love to see in how we understand and approach healing?
Yeah. This one I think about a lot, and it really makes me so sad to see that we, at least in Western medicine, are coming from such a reactive approach rather than proactive. And we live in a society that's treating the symptoms rather than preventing the symptoms from happening in the first place. And that's much more profitable. Oh, you already have heart disease? Here's a surgery, here are pharmaceutical meds that we can treat that, rather than how about we make sure that you are walking enough every day, are not eating high inflammatory foods, are not having a super stressful life. Of course, we have stress in life, but how can we make sure that you are as healthy as possible so we don't even need to put you on meds for heart disease or getting some sort of surgery from, having had such an inflammatory diet and lifestyle. And it's so common to just prescribe pills to treat symptoms and to just go into the doctor, kind of get dismissed, and then just get handed a prescription. And we don't give the patient, the person, the empowered perspective of taking their health into their own hands, because it's easier to just put it into the hands of a doctor. And I don't want to discount the job that doctors do. Doctors are extremely important, and especially for emergency acute situations, Western medicine has like really gotten it down. But I think it's not so great that most people don't know what's going on in their bodies. They don't really know how to empower themselves, empower their own routines, and to feel like they don't need to rely on pharmaceuticals. They don't need to rely on the doctors to feel okay in themselves. And of course, get your checkups, test your blood, please. Like, testing is great. It gives you a benchmark of where you're at. And, you know, healthcare practitioners are extremely important again. But I would like to see more mind-body healing, holistic approaches to the whole person. Not just like, oh, you have heart disease or you have diabetes, we're going to treat this. But why do you have heart disease? Why are you not eating healthy? Why are you so stressed? What's going on that's led you to become this diseased person? How can we empower the person to be healthy and to make those healthy decisions so they don't get to that place, so they don't need these things?
Mm-hmm. I have another question, and it is kind of similar, but going a little bit deeper on a specific kind of thread, which is, what do you think are patterns of sickness and healing? So kind of like you're just speaking about, we find ourselves sick and then we look for a cure. Like, we're having this very reactive, or as a society, I say we, are having this very reactive approach to our health. What do you think these patterns reveal about society today? And how might practices like yours shift these patterns?
Yeah. I think, you know, our bodies are extremely intelligent, and we are not taught this. We're taught, oh, there's a bug that you got when you were, you know, in my case, there's a parasite that you got while swimming in this dirty water in Guatemala. Yes, all very true. But if I had a stronger immune system, I would have been able to have fought that. And if I was less stressed, I would have probably been able to have fought that. Not to say that our bodies aren't going to catch colds and get infections. Of course they're going to. But also, we're living in a very sick society, and our immune systems are arguably not very good. There's environmental toxins in the air, in our water, in our food. I mean, we didn't even talk so much about the soil health and the pesticides that we're spraying on all of our vegetables, but we're so disconnected from the natural world and so disconnected from our animal selves. And this is going to show up in our bodies. You know, we're spending all day on screens without getting enough sun, without eating enough foods from the earth, without touching the earth. You know, there's so many studies that show grounding, literally putting your feet barefoot on the soil. Also, putting your hands in the earth and the soil helps the microbiome in the body, and it lowers your stress levels. And, you know, getting your vitamin green, in some cultures, they'll prescribe you time in nature because that will calm the nervous system, which will lower your stress levels, which will lower inflammation, which will help you sleep better, which will help you digest better. And so the way that we're living in society, we are so disconnected from living in tune with nature, living in tune and in sync with the earth, which we've evolved to do. So in some, I've heard this term, I don't remember who it was from, evolutionary mismatch, where we're living in a sick society and our bodies have not evolved to live in the society that we're currently living in. We have evolved, we're still living in these bodies that are expecting to lay for hours in the sun, picking berries, spending time with our loved ones, sitting in community, in these more tribal kind of setups. But we're living these like overstimulated societies. Our dopamine levels are like just ridiculously out of control. Our cortisol levels are out of control because we're not in sync with our bodies. We're not in sync with each other. We're not in sync with the planet. And factory farming, we're eating stressed animals. That's going to show up in our bodies. And we're eating vegetables from soil that is diseased, essentially. And so we're killing the biodiversity in our foods, but then also that's affecting the biodiversity in our guts, which is then affecting our brain health and our gut health and our happiness and stress levels. So it's all interconnected, and we need to just try to be aware of this and figure out how can we feel a little bit more connected to the planet and the foods that we're eating so we can feel more connected with our own bodies and our own health.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think it would be actually super interesting to hear a bit more about how we as individuals, like we specifically living in the Western world, can make more informed purchasing decisions on how we nourish ourselves. And maybe it's not just purchasing decisions, maybe it's also like small routine life hacks. Like, for example, you go on a morning walk every day within the first 90 minutes of waking up to get yourself and get your vitamin green and get your vitamin D straight to your eyes. So I'm curious if you can maybe shine a little bit of light or provide some advice on how people can align their purchasing with these values.
Yeah, totally. Something that I like to use as a guiding principle is the seasons as much as possible, and your location. So, I can be a little bit, we were talking about tomatoes the other day. It's now mid-October. Tomatoes are not in season.
No tomatoes in our house.
No tomatoes in our house. No, of course, I don't like to demonize anything. That's a big part of what I do. And if someone loves tomatoes, like, go for it. They're not going to taste so good, in my opinion. But if, it's October in Germany and the leaves are starting to change and we have a lot of really great seasonal produce now, figs, apples, pears, cabbage, pumpkin, thyme, rosemary. These are the flavors of the season. They're going to be, first of all, cheapest at this time of year because they're seasonal. And if you can buy things that are seasonal and regional and local, they're going to be cheaper. They're going to taste better. They're going to have so many more nutrients, which it's just like a win-win-win. You're supporting local farmers, which is supporting the local economy. And when you buy organic, you're supporting soil health. And so then you're part of this closed loop system. So it tastes better for you, it's better for the farmers, it's better for your body, it's better for the planet, it's better for the soil. So if you can think about this when you're purchasing food for the week, or for the month or whatever, is this in season? Is this supporting the people who are growing it? Is this supporting my body and my health? Mm-hmm. And also, is this supporting my pleasure? Because that has to matter. Don't buy things if you don't enjoy them. That doesn't make sense. But then also with the same approach, okay, it's the season to go out and check out the leaves. Like, I go for a walk no matter what, like every day. But now I take more of an effort to, where are the leaves going to be the most beautiful right now? How can I really appreciate what's happening right now on this beautiful day in October, even if it's raining? It's like, okay, but cool. Like, I got to see what the leaves look like yesterday, and now there's less today because they started to fall because it's, beautiful fall time. And then similarly in the summer, it's like, wow, I also want to really revel in the green that's all around me. And this is so beautiful. And soak up the sun, and just remind yourself of like where you're at to be more in sync with nature. And then also too, maybe I come back from a morning walk in the middle of July and I'm sweating. It's so hot. I'm going to want to come back and I might want to have like some mint water. And mint, which grows in the summer, is naturally cooling for the body. And so if you're listening to your body, which is sweating, you have too much heat in the body, and then you're consuming products that grow locally and seasonally at that time of year, it's gonna help you regulate your body simply by getting in touch with nature, getting in touch with your body, and then using the foods that we have in our local ecosystems to support that. So it's just like a fun little way to check in with like where you're at and check in with the world, check in with nature, and then figure out what you need. I was so cold today when I came home from my walk, and normally I have like a chia pudding on a warm day, and I didn't have those ingredients, and that was a bit sad. But then, here I was cold, so I'm having, a tea with cinnamon and orange, which is warming and really nice right now. So it's, again, just like checking in with your body and the day. Where are you at in the year?
Yeah, I'm so glad that we went down into this topic, because I think you're touching on something that's so relevant to this holistic healing equation, which is not only taking a holistic look at your life, but seeing how you can be in sync with the ecosystem you're living in.
Yeah.
It's not just, you're not living in a vacuum. You're living also in an ecosystem that is also alive. And how can you sync up your own cycle of eating and sleeping and nourishing yourself with the cycle of what's happening around you? I think that's such an important piece of the puzzle that so many people don't think about, myself for a very long time included. And I just wanted to ask one specific question. You mentioned purchasing organically or buying organic food to have more nutrients and to support the overall health of the soil. Would you generally recommend buying all organic? Or are there certain foods, like let's say you're on a budget and you can't afford to buy all foods organic? Are there any specific foods that you would say always get them organic if possible?
Yeah, it's a very good question. If you can buy organic, I would. And I know that it is more expensive to buy organic. But I just want to invite you, whoever's listening, to think about, why sometimes we aren't open or willing to spend 30 cents more on organic cucumbers, which again is supporting your health, the farmers, the soil, the planet, but we're much more willing to spend that on a drink at a bar.
Yeah, and maybe I want to drill a little bit deeper, like why? How is it supporting your health and the health of the planet?
Yeah.
What does the alternative look like, and why is it bad?
Yeah. So if you take something like organic tomatoes or conventional tomatoes, so basically what happens is when you're spraying these pesticides on the produce, especially something like tomatoes or berries, things that you're eating the outside of it, you're not probably peeling tomatoes, you're definitely not peeling strawberries or nectarines in the summer. So these are things I'd be especially careful about when buying produce. When you're eating the outside, think about the pesticides are probably going on the outside and you're going to be eating it. So something like organic bananas, though again I pretty much buy organic everything, are not as important because you're going to peel off the peel and you're going to throw it out. Hopefully compost it. So it's not going to seep into the food quite as much. So when you're thinking about buying organic, think about, or not buying organic, think about if the pesticide, you're going to be consuming it directly. And of course you're going to want to wash it off anyway, but that's one thing to think about. But if you take the tomatoes and you're spraying them with pesticides, unless you're really, 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 really washing these well, you're probably consuming these toxic chemicals that are killing off all of these other organisms, which that's great that we're not going to have bugs on our food, but that's not going to be good for us. We're also organic, we're organic organisms, and this can't be good for us. These chemicals that our body doesn't know how to how to digest and metabolize. So that's number one. Number two, tomatoes are grown on the earth, which again is organic. And when you put these chemicals in the soil, that's killing off the microbiome of the soil, which the most healthy soils in the world are full of so many different organisms, and that's what makes it so healthy, is the biodiversity. When you think about Costa Rica, there's all these different animals and plants, and that makes it so rich and so vibrant, and they're part of their own ecosystem. And then the more fruits that you have, the more you can feed the monkeys, and then the monkeys can, populate, and then they have this, and there's all these different organisms that are benefiting from all of the different fruits and plants and other animals that are there. If you strip away and you only have like 2 different varieties of things left in this jungle, everything's gonna die. And then that's not gonna be a good situation for anybody. And you could look at the soils the same way. It's like, in this soil, if you're spraying pesticides on it, how is that impacting the earthworms that are there? And the mushrooms that are growing that help support the growth of other vegetables. And if you look at the planet today and you see in large parts of the US and Europe, all over the world, there's just this like dirt. It's just dead. All of this land that used to be vibrant, full of life. I mean, if now it's dead, all of the earthworms, the insects, the fruits, the plants that used to grow there are no longer there. And what about the shade that they provided for the animals, for the humans? That's also not there. And so this is now uninhabitable. And the more that we continue to grow food in this way, in this conventional way, we're killing all the biodiversity, and we're just making land more and more uninhabitable. And then that's changing with the weather as well. And so if there's less shade from the trees, then that's going to heat up the land, and then we have desertification, and that's what's happening everywhere. And that's then causing humans to need to move all over the world, and then populating places, and then you have immigration problems. I mean, it's like one thing leads to the next. And again, the earth, all of these ecosystems, they know how to operate within each other. And so when you kill one thing, you're kind of killing everything. And there needs to be checks and balances here, and it's completely gone out of hand. So this is a big picture approach as to like why you should, buy organic tomatoes. But also too, it's like a lot of these conventional growing systems are these big corporations. And so what about the farmers whose families have been, dependent on these forms of income for a long time, and they know what the earth needs. They know what these tomatoes need. But now they're completely stripped away as well. And then where are these people going to go? You've completely stripped away their livelihood. So now they're working for these corporations. So this is just, again, big picture, but this is just one small way that you can support your local environment, but also the bigger picture. Not to mention, again, when the soil isn't healthy and it's stripped away of all the, biodiversity in the soil, what do you think is going to show up in your tomatoes? Those tomatoes are not going to have the same vitamins and nutrients that an heirloom tomato seed would have when it grows. So you have this sort of like dead produce from this dead soil. We don't want that. Yeah.
I think when you lay it out like this, it becomes so clear to, I think the benefits of purchasing organic and spending a little bit of extra money just so clearly outweigh the slight cost savings when you look at it with this bigger picture in mind. And I think it's really interesting to think about how what feels like a micro decision is actually a major part of this question of living holistically, and I think going back to the sickness of society, like I often think of how disconnected we are from nature, like you were saying, like we've kind of pulled ourselves from this wildness and this wild way of living where many of us live in urban environments, where we live in kind of a box around neighbors that we don't know, and our feet are not touching grass or soil on a daily basis unless we make time explicitly to go do this and have this moment of connection to nature, when in reality we are deeply cyclical beings. And I think that this also disconnects us from ourselves. Like this disconnection with nature deeply disconnects us from ourselves and also supports in this kind of cycle of reactivity to our health and then responsive numbing to the symptom. Because when we look at it from a societal, when we look at it from through a systemic societal lens, the answers are so much bigger, or the system change required is so much bigger than just taking a pill to numb the feeling inside of us. And I think that shedding light on these small changes we can make for ourselves, like connecting more to the cyclical nature of produce and making a conscious effort to get outside every single day and feel the nature and the land around us and consciously purchase what we're putting into our bodies to know that it came from a local farmer who is farming in alignment with biodiversity requirements of the land, who's not exploiting the land for profit at the expense of that land in the future.
And for our own health.
Which will ultimately contribute to our feeling of healthy, which is, such a broad term, but our feeling of connectedness to ourselves and our environment.
Yeah. One of my best friends always says, pay now or pay later. Pay a bit more now for their organic tomatoes, or pay later for, all the supplements and pharmaceuticals and surgeries and doctor's visits that you'll need to pay. And of course, I'm not going to say if you eat really healthily and it's not all organic, do what you can. Yeah. It's not like, don't eat organic and you're going to have to go to the hospital. But I think we can all just check up a little bit more on our habits and our spendings and our consumption, and are they supporting a healthy ecosystem for our own bodies, for our local societies, and for the world?
Absolutely. And at the very least, think twice. Take a look at the label. Just take a look at where that produce came from that you're about to purchase. These are things that I never did before. I just didn't know. Nobody told me I should. And it's been very illuminating having access to your perspective and your wisdom, because I now can make choices that are even more aligned with my own values and my own how I want to live. So I have one final question for you. Okay. And that is, what is on your reading list? If you were to give recommendations on books that have kind of transformed or formed your perspective, what are those books?
Sure. So the first book I would say that changed my life is Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. And this is the first book that gave me a whole broad picture of how the world works and the narratives that we've been given that we haven't questioned, when really everything is a story. And what would it look like if we questioned how the world works by questioning these narratives? So that was the first book that I think really helped me start critically thinking about the world. So that would be the first one, and then that brought me to the second one, which is the book that inspired him, which is Guns, Germs, and Steel, which goes even deeper into how the world works. And the main prompt of this book was how the new world became the new world. Why did the old world, as we know it, take over the new world, and why was it not the other way around in terms of who colonized who, and what were the pieces of the puzzle that led us to where we are.
Interesting.
And that just really goes into, geography plays such a big part of how we even got to that place and dispels a lot of myths as to, why Europe was the most powerful place in the world. And has nothing to do with race or superior races or anything like that, but more so how geography plays a part, and really having a look at these bigger picture models of the world and how it works, and also questioning these narratives that we've been conditioned to believe. And then in terms of sustainable agriculture and living more in touch with nature, and again, questioning these narratives as to how we should be living and consuming. There's 2 books that I can think of that really shaped my perspective and influenced me quite a bit. And one is called Animal Vegetable Miracle by Barbara Kingsolver, who a lot of people might know, who generally is a writer of novels. But this was a memoir about her experience moving to somewhere in Virginia with her family as an experiment to live off of the land for 1 year. And now they still live there. It's been, I don't know how many years now. To see what it would be like to only consume things that they grew themselves or that their neighbors grew. And how they went about doing so in a very seasonal way. There's still winter, so she goes into detail about how, in the summer there's an abundance of tomatoes and zucchinis, and how she stores those in the summer. So in the winter, she already has the sauces that she needs from all the tomatoes that she harvested, and then the way that she uses zucchinis in the cookies for the kids to get them to eat more greens. And when she was living in Arizona with her family, how she was so disconnected from the land and there was no water there, and how they were living in a food desert, and really touches on how our systems are just often not supporting our health and the soil. And then that eventually prompted me to learning more about more indigenous ways of being in touch with the land. And so there's an incredible book called Braiding Sweetgrass, which uses a lot of examples of Native Americans and how they have been living in sync with nature and the land, and for many, 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 many years, and how we can learn from their relationship with nature and the earth in our own lives. So those ones come to mind the most, I would say. And then I'm probably blanking on someone. Oh yes, I can't forget about The Inflammation Spectrum by Dr. Will Cole. So this is eventually what brought me to IIN. So this helped me when I was doing my elimination diet. So trigger warning, this is pretty intense because it really, really, really highlights kind of where you're at. So if you're looking to do an elimination diet, if you feel like you are struggling with different systems in your body, whether it's your, gut health, like for me, or perhaps you're struggling with thyroid issues. So in the beginning of the book, he guides you and you take this test of like where different inflammation is in your body, because at the end of the day, when you're sick, it's basically inflammation. Inflammation is the source of pretty much all disease. And so you see if you have inflammation in all these different, in your gut, in your thyroid, and, adrenals, whatever. And from there, that'll inform your decision if you should go on a very, very strict elimination diet, where I think it was like the Great 8, and that is like seeds, nuts, sugar, oils, dairy, eggs, whatever. Or if you could do one that's a little bit less intensive. So again, this is based on your inflammation score. And while you're being guided through these elimination diets, depending on what your score is, you're also being guided on all the other things that you should be eliminating in your life, or to at least be aware of, that could be impacting your inflammation. Because again, it's not just about the food, it's also about what you're consuming in your everyday life. So I remember when I was doing this, I was like, oh yes, okay, I'm gonna eliminate, dairy, eggs, soy, and beans, and sugar, and inflammatory oils. So I'm like, perfect, okay, I can create recipes that do this, and I'm gonna be good to go. And he's like, Okay, this week you're also going to eliminate negative thinking. You're also going to eliminate screen time. You're going to eliminate environmental toxins. Have you checked the mold in your shower? Have you checked what ingredients are in the clothes that you're wearing? Is this made from plastic or is this made from organic materials? And all of the different things that are impacting the inflammation that's in your body, which is impacting your overall health. So again, this more big picture of what's going on. So that book was really, really, really insightful. And there's probably so many others that I can't think of in this moment. So depending on the topic, you can reach out at another point. But I would say start with these, and this will give you a good way to go.
Yeah, sounds like a very solid foundation.
Yeah.
I have my homework cut out for me.
Yes, definitely.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here.
For sure.
And for answering my questions and sharing your perspective. I think it's always enlightening to have these conversations with you, even though we have them all the time.
All the time.
It's still shines so much light on the changes I've made so far and the changes that I will continue to make thanks to our coaching session. So yeah, I want to thank you for your time and your perspective, and I know that your journey and your wisdom will be very helpful to people who are also seeking knowledge in this realm.
Happy to help and to be here. Thanks for having me. Yay.
That's a wrap.
Let's have some seasonal local produce for lunch.
Yes. Nice. Thanks for tuning in to The Core of It. I hope the conversation was useful and interesting. For more information about Terra Collective and the practitioners highlighted on The Core of It, or to join the collective as either a practitioner or seeker, go to our website at www.terra-collective.co.